Part 89. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 881. Chapter 881. It's not that she can make up for it if she wants to. After saying that, Bai Yusheng turned around and ordered his assistant, block up the information on the scene and notify it. No one can leak this matter. If I know that someone has quietly released the information and find out who it is, don't blame me for being ruthless. From now on, this person will never want to hang out in the circle. The assistant nodded and went to make arrangements immediately. Bai Yusheng made another call to the hospital. After the call, he immediately had someone drive the car over. With his arrival, everyone seemed to have found their backbone. Even Mike didn't look so anxious. Soon, under Bai Yusheng's arrangement, a group of people protected Tu Yuli and rushed to the hospital. Chiao Mian also rushed to the hospital. Asterisk. The hospital where Chiao Mian went with Bai Yusheng. Tu Yuli and the others were riding in another car. Chiao Mian and Bai Yusheng were in the same car. After getting in the car, Chiao Mian fell into autistic state, turning her head and looking out the window without saying a word. The image of Tu Yuli having sulfuric acid thrown at him and the back of his hand being corroded to a pulp kept reappearing in her mind. She didn't know if those burns could be cured. If the recovery is not good. She didn't dare to think about what the consequences would be. For a top traffic person like Tu Yuli, injuries on his hands would have a great impact on his career. What are you thinking about? Bai Yusheng could see that she was in a bad mood, and before she went there, she had heard someone talk about the reason for the injury on the back of Tu Yuli's hand. Now seeing her like this, he knew that she must be thinking about it. Tu Yuli is worried about things. Chiao Mian shut herself up for a while before sighing heavily. Brother Bai, do you know that Tu Yuli got sulfuric acid thrown on his hand because he blocked it for me? Chiao Mian covered her face with her hands, feeling irritated and uncomfortable. Huang Yilin came to me and begged me to let go pass her. When I didn't agree, she took out sulfuric acid and tried to throw it at me. At that time, Tu Yuli pushed me away and stood in front of me. Her voice was choked, all the sulfuric acid was poured on his hands. He suffered such a serious injury on his hand. What should he do if he cannot recover? I suddenly owe him such a huge favor, but I don't know how to repay him. If the injury on his hand does not recover well, it will definitely have a great impact on his future career. Brother Bai, what do you think I should do? I caused him to be like this. No matter how much I try to make up for it, I can't make up for it. This kindness is too great. It's not something she can make up for if she wants to. How could he be so stupid? Why, you have to block it for her. She feels very uncomfortable now and feels very sorry. She was the one who harmed Tu Yuli. Bai Yusheng turned his head and glanced at her, thought for a while, and slowly pulled the car over and stopped. Mian, so you're blaming yourself for this, right? You think you hurt him, and you feel you're sorry for him. Chiao Mian's eyes suddenly turned red, and she nodded slightly, yes. Bai Yusheng looked at the girl's red eyes and the tip of her nose, sighed softly, reached out to touch her head, and couldn't help but calm down and comforted her. But this matter is not your fault, you don't need to blame yourself at all. It's not my fault. Chiao Mian blinked, as if she didn't understand. She choked softly, Brother Bai, please stop comforting me. How could it be that it's not my fault? It's my fault. If it wasn't for me, he won't be hurt. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 882. Chapter 882. She is most likely in Yunchinj. Huang Yilin's target was me, not him. He would have been fine. So, you think you hurt him? I hurt him in the first place. But, wouldn't you rather it be you who gets hurt instead of him? Yes. In this case, she wouldn't have to blame herself as much as she does now. In my heart, I won't be as tortured as I am now. Mian, he did it voluntarily. You didn't force him to do that. Bai Yusheng analyzed it objectively for her. Besides, when the incident happened suddenly, you never thought that he would do that, right? So, how can I blame you? Although this thing happened because of you, the choice was made by him. I know that no matter what, you will definitely feel guilty. But you have to know one thing, here you didn't do anything wrong in this matter. If I have to say who is responsible, it is Huang Yilan's responsibility. She threw the sulfuric acid and she was the one who hurt people. Well, actually, I have seen the burns on the back of Tu Yuli's hands, and they are not as serious as you think. He should be considered lucky among misfortunes. If my guess is correct, the concentration of sulfuric acid in the bottle is not very high. If it is sulfuric acid with a very high concentration, Tu Yuli definitely doesn't have a good piece of flesh on the back of his hand. The injury is definitely much more serious than it is now. Chiao Mian was stunned for a moment. Isn't the concentration of that bottle of sulfuric acid high? Bai Yusheng nodded. It must have been diluted. The injury on the back of his hand looks terrible, but it should be able to recover. Really? Can it really be restored? Chiao Mian's dull eyes finally brightened a little. Brother Bai, you didn't lie to me. Can Tu Yuli's hand really be restored? It won't affect him. Will his career develop in the future? Bai Yusheng did not dare to speak too harshly. After thinking for a while, he said, there is a high possibility of recovery. In short, it is not as serious as you think. So, you don't have to blame yourself too much. However, he helped. I'm quite grateful to you for blocking that moment. Huh, Chiao Mian was stunned. If he hadn't blocked it for you, you would have been the injured one. Bai Yusheng hesitated, his dark eyes fell on her face, and after looking at her intently for a few seconds, he sighed softly. Mian, if the injured person is you, I think I will definitely feel sad. Chiao Mian opened her eyes wide. Brother Bai, I've been thinking about one thing these days. Bai Yusheng looked at her dark eyes, with a hint of complicated emotions in them. After being silent for a while, he said slowly, if I have never seen it, would be great if the sister here is you. You know, my parents have investigated some clues recently, and maybe I will be able to find my long-lost sister soon. Have you found any clues? Chiao Mian looked surprised and couldn't help but ask, what have you found? Do you already know the whereabouts of your sister? Not yet, but I know something about it. Bai Yusheng didn't want to hide anything from Chiao Mian and told her all the information he had investigated. Based on the current information, she is most likely in Yunqing. I really didn't expect that after so many years of checking and checking, we found that she was actually living under our noses. I always thought she must have moved somewhere else, so my focus has always been on other places. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 883. Chapter 883. I also feel nostalgic for this warmth. As a result, the clues have been stuck at a certain point, unable to proceed, and many years of time have been wasted. When Bai Yusheng said this, he looked at Chiao Mian with that complicated look and said, you are also from Yunqing. As soon as I met you, I had an inexplicable affection and felt that you were like my sister. So I was thinking, are you really my sister? Brother Bai, But, this is impossible, right? Bai Yusheng tugged at the corners of her lips and sighed again. My sister was given up for adoption, how could you be? Chiao Mian was silent for a while, feeling a little sad for some reason. She also knew that she shouldn't have such emotions. Perhaps Bai Yasheng will be able to find his sister soon. They can be reunited as a family. This is a happy event worthy of celebration, and she should be happy for Bai Yasheng. After all, she knew very well how much he wanted to have a sister and how much he cared about his sister who had been living abroad for many years. The whole family has been looking for the girl for more than 10 years. You can imagine how important that girl is to their family. However, she found that she seemed unhappy. In my heart, I felt a slight sense of loss. When Bai Yasheng finds his sister, all his favors from now on will definitely be given to his sister. How could she, who made him feel like his sister, still receive such gentle and considerate treatment from him? Would he still treat her as well as he does now? Definitely not. His biological sister has returned to him, how could he still be so kind to an outsider? Actually, these are very normal things and she can understand them. But she couldn't help but feel a little sad and lost. If he had never been nice to her, she would definitely not feel anything, but in the past few days, he treated her like a gentle big brother and did so many things that made her feel warm, and she began to become got greedy. I also feel nostalgic for this warmth. That's why after hearing Bai Yasheng talk about having clues about his sister, he suddenly felt lost. People are really greedy animals. Bai Yasheng was kind to her, but it was just a matter of these few days, and she actually felt nostalgic and reluctant to let him go. Brother Bai, then, congratulations. She suppressed the sourness in her heart and squeezed out a smile from the corners of her lips, not wanting her emotions to be revealed too obviously. It seems like, soon, you guys will the family can be reunited. It's a great event worth celebrating. Yes, it is indeed a happy event. Bai Yasheng nodded. Our family has been looking for her for 18 years, and now we finally have a clue. Mian, I think you are really my lucky star. Chiao Mian was stunned for a moment. Why do you say that? Bai Yasheng smiled. Didn't you say before that our family will definitely be reunited soon? You see, as soon as you said it, we found the clues very quickly. Isn't this lucky enough? I always feel, this good luck was brought to me. After 18 years of investigation, no clues have been found. But after meeting you, I quickly got a clue. Mian, you will bring good luck to the people around you, so you don't have to worry anymore. I think Tuyuli will definitely be fine. Is she a lucky star? Chiao Mian thought about Tuyuli's injury because of her, and curled her lips with some self-deprecation. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 884. Chapter 884. Do you want to come to my birthday party? If she is a lucky star, she will not involve others. She hoped that she was a lucky star. In this case, she hoped that the injury on Tuyuli's hand would heal well without leaving any scars. By the way, it's my birthday in a few days. Do you want to come to my birthday party? Bai Yasheng saw that she was becoming a little depressed and knew that she must be worried about Tuyuli again, so he changed the topic. Chiao Mian raised her head and looked at him. Brother Bai, are you celebrating your birthday? Well, this weekend. The birthday party may be held at home. I invite some family friends, relatives, and friends from Yunchinj. I hope you can also come to my birthday party. Okay. Chiao Mian nodded immediately. Brother Bai has his birthday, I will definitely go. Then it's settled, you must come when the time comes. One more thing, I will also invite some friends in the circle. You and Mo Yesi, you'd better not show up together. If you decide not to do it now, if your relationship is exposed, you can't appear at my birthday party together as a couple. What I mean, do you understand? Chiao Mian nodded. Yes, I understand. Of course she understands what Bai Yasheng means. Even then, she didn't know what to tell Mo Yesi. He would probably be very unhappy if two people appeared at the same banquet and pretended not to know each other. A man as proud as him has to be hidden by her because of her and cannot reveal his marriage to her. You can imagine how uncomfortable he felt. But now is not the right time to make their relationship public. She and Linda signed a contract, which stipulated that she could not disclose her relationship for 2 years. I think my parents will like you very much when they see you. Bai Yushen looked at the delicate and beautiful white face of the girl in front of him and said with a raised lip. Chiao Mian blinked, huh. I told them about you, so they also hope to see you at my birthday party. Brother Bai told your parents about me. Chiao Mian was a little surprised. Bai Yushen nodded. I told them, by the way, when I called them. Unexpectedly, they seemed to be very interested in you and said they wanted to meet you. By the way, can I send them a photo of you first? I told them that you look like my sister when she was a child, and they wanted to see it. Of course. Brother Bai, if you want to send me a photo, then go ahead. Chiao Mian never thought that Bai Yusheng had mentioned her to his parents. Moreover, his parents seemed to be very interested in her. I really don't know how he talked about her. With her consent, Bai Yusheng said with a smile, okay, I will send it to them later. Let's go to the hospital first to see how Tu Yuli is doing. Asterisk. Benevolence Hospital. After arriving at the hospital and asking where Tu Yuli was, Chiao Mian and Bai Yusheng went there. The doctor is looking at the wound on the back of Tu Yuli's hand. Mike was extremely anxious beside him and kept asking the doctor, Doctor, how is our little Tutu's injury? Can his hand recover? He is a star, and his hands and face are equally important. You must, if you want to treat him well, you must heal his hands. He is not allowed to have scars on his hands. If there are scars, it will affect his future career development. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 885. Chapter 885. Things did not develop towards the worst outcome. Doctor, please be gentle. You see there is sweat on little Tutu's forehead. Have you hurt him? Doctor, why don't you say anything? How is my little Tutu doing? Isn't it serious? The injury on his hand can't be recovered. Don't scare me. We are rich. No matter how much we spend, he must heal the injury on his hand. When Chiao Mian walked into the doctor's diagnosis room, she heard Mike's nagging voice. Probably because he felt that Mike was too noisy, the doctor's assistant couldn't stand it anymore, so he couldn't help but said, Sir, please don't be anxious, okay? Dr. Zhao is treating Mr. Tu, and you are talking next to him, it will affect his judgment. Even Tu Yuli felt that he was too noisy and couldn't stand him anymore. He turned his head and glanced at him, frowning, and said, Mike, please be quiet. If you are like this, no matter how the doctor shows me, I am almost dying of pain. Why don't you still? The noise keeps going on. Are you worried about me, or are you trying to torture me? Xiao Tutu, Okay, let's talk about it later. Okay, doctor, I won't say anything anymore. Please show him quickly. Mike glanced at the back of Tu Yuli's hand and closed his mouth in distress. The doctor lowered his head to examine Tu Yuli again. After a while, after the examination, he reached out and took off his gloves. The treatment was quite timely when we first arrived at the hospital, so the burn on the back of Mr. Tu's hand has not become serious yet. When Mike heard this, he couldn't help but ask, you said the burn on the back of little Tutu's hand is not serious, do you mean it can be cured? The doctor nodded, it should be curable. Oh my God, thank you 8 generations of ancestors. Mike clasped his hands together happily, with tears in his eyes. Tu Yuli couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief after hearing the doctor's words. He had no regrets about rushing over to shield Chiao Mian from the sulfuric acid. If he was given another chance to choose, he would still do it. But if you don't regret it, you won't regret it. His hands were burned like this by sulfuric acid, it was impossible for him to not feel anything at all. He will also be sad. He will also worry about the impact on his career. He is not a very strong person. Outside the clinic. Hearing the doctor's words, Chiao Mian felt relieved, as if a heavy burden in her heart was suddenly lifted, and her whole body felt much more relaxed. The depressed mood in my heart also disappeared. Fortunately, what I heard is good news. Things did not develop for the worst. If the burn on the back of Tu Yuli's hand cannot be cured and will leave scars in the future, she will probably feel guilty about him for the rest of her life. The good news is, as long as it can be cured. Bai Yusheng glanced at Chiao Mian and walked in first. Doctor, give him a good treatment. He is an artist. If there are scars on the exposed skin, it will be harmful to him. He will have an impact. During this period, I would like to trouble you to pay more attention. The doctor looked up and saw that the person who came in was Bai Yusheng. His attitude was very respectful and he hurriedly responded, Mr. Bai, please don't worry. We will do our best to cure the burn on the back of Mr. Tu's hand. Yeah, Bai Yusheng nodded, I believe you. When Tu Yuli saw Bai Yusheng coming, he subconsciously looked towards the door. When he saw Chiao Mian still standing at the door, he smiled at her, Miss Chiao, you are here too. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 886. Chapter 886 The meaning of letting Chiao Mian go. Of course I'm coming. Chiao Mian walked to him with gratitude in her heart, was silent for a while, and said softly, how do you feel now? Is the wound still painful? Tu Yuli's burns on the back of his hands were treated as soon as he arrived at the hospital. Although the medicine has been applied, it is still a bit shocking to look at. Tu Yuli saw the concern and remorse in her eyes, and his heart suddenly felt warm, and he felt that the pain on the back of his hand was not so unbearable. He looked at her with softer eyes, and his voice became gentler, the doctor just applied medicine, and it's much better now. It doesn't hurt so much. Mike standing next to him moved his lips, with an unbearable expression on his face. What does not hurt so much mean? His face was obviously so painful that he turned pale just now, and his face was covered in cold sweat. It's all the ghosts, but now in front of her favorite woman, they look like no one. I am in such a miserable state, yet I still comfort others. He didn't even know what to say. Okay, Miss Chiao, you don't have to worry about me. The doctor just said that the burn on the back of my hand can be cured. Don't worry, I will be fine. In order to show that he was really fine, Tu Yuliang lips smiled at her, the smile was bright and sunny. As if nothing really happened. Mr. Tu, now we have to give you anti-inflammatory treatment. So you need to stay in the hospital for intravenous drip for a few days. The ward has been arranged. Do you think you should go now or not? The doctor looked at a few people and reminded aloud. Transfer to the ward and give us some anti-inflammation immediately. If the wound on the back of his hand becomes inflamed, it will be troublesome. Before the others could say anything, Mike helped Tu Yuli stand up and shouted that he wanted to give him some anti-inflammation right away. He was given intravenous infusions to reduce inflammation. In fact, Mike was very unhappy with Chiao Mian. If it weren't for Bai Yusheng being here, he would have let Chiao Mian leave. Humph, it's because of this little girl that his little tutu became like this. Although the doctor said it could be cured, he was still unhappy with the little girl. Originally, his little tutu didn't have to suffer this crime at all. Think of how painful it would be if sulfuric acid was poured on your hands and the skin was corroded. Furthermore, because of the injury on the back of his hand, he will definitely be unable to film for the time being. He will have announcements and advertisements for a while, so he will definitely have to postpone the time. In short, because of his injury this time, a lot of work has been delayed. Because Mike didn't have a good look towards Xiao Mian. When he helped Tu Yuli walk past her, he said directly, "Miss Xiao, you also saw that our little Tutu was lucky this time. The burn on the back of her hand, it can still be cured. If you came here to know the condition of his injury, you know it now, and there is no need to stay here to watch him. We don't want to waste your time. Miss Xiao is still busy with you. It's about that, you don't have to stay here anymore." What he said was euphemistic enough. I just said this for Bai Yusheng's sake. The crew is rumored that this little girl is Bai Yusheng's cousin. Although he doesn't know whether it's true or not, since such rumors have spread, Mike doesn't want to offend anyone. Anyway, the injury on his little Tutu's hand can be cured, which is considered a blessing among misfortunes. Everyone can hear that Mike means to let Xiao Mian leave. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 887. Chapter 887. How dare you attack him for the sake of a woman? Xiao Mian's face was a little stiff. She opened her mouth and was about to speak when she heard Tu Yuli speak first. "Miss Xiao, Mike is going through menopause during this period, so his temper is a bit abnormal. Just ignore him." I suddenly remembered that there are 2 scenes that need to be corrected. I wonder if Miss Xiao can accompany me to correct them. I will definitely not be able to go to the set these days. I'm afraid that if I delay for too long, I won't be able to feel the performance in the future, so can you please, Miss Xiao, if you have time in the past few days, come to the hospital to play with me? Of course, if you have anything else to say, just pretend I didn't say anything. Little bastard, what are you talking about? Who has reached menopause? Also, what kind of drama do you want to play? What good things do you want to do? Just give it to me in the next few days. Mike, shut up. Tu Yuli turned his head and glared at him fiercely, with a warning in his eyes. I know my own affairs well. I don't need you to help me make decisions. If you feel uncomfortable staying here, you can go back. The cub he pulled up with his own hand was fierce and threatening. Mike was angry and aggrieved at the same time. This little brat dared to attack him for the sake of a woman. Is this because the wings are stiff and disobedient? Actually said that he was menopausal. He is still young, not even 40 yet. But Mike only dared to murmur in his heart. It was precisely because Tu Yuli was the artist he helped to become famous, and the two had known each other for many years, that he understood the character of this little brat. It him off, he really didn't recognize anything. For Xiao Mian, he was willing to risk disfigurement. This shows how important Xiao Mian is in his heart. He finally understood. He couldn't persuade this little brat. This time, his little brat really fell into it. Mike was so angry that he could only reply weakly, I will go back if you ask me to. If I don't go back, I will stay here. What can you do to me? How could he rest assured that Tu Yuli would be left alone here? Although the relationship between the two is that of a manager and a contracted artist, the employment relationship has long since turned into friends, or even better than friends. Xiao Mian on the side. Although Mike always acted dissatisfied with her, she didn't feel too bad about Mike. After all, as an agent, everything Mike does is for the benefit of his own artists. From Mike's perspective, he did nothing wrong. Xiao Mian can feel whether the other person really hates her. Huang Yilan really hates her. But she didn't feel the same emotion from Mike. Bai Yusheng, who was watching everything, glanced at Tu Yuli thoughtfully, then turned to look at Xiao Mian, frowning slightly. Asterisk. Xiao Mian finally stayed in the hospital to play with Tu Yuli. In fact, the scene was not long ago. Although the injury on the back of Tu Yuli's hand could be cured, after all, what was poured on the back of his hand was sulfuric acid. Even if it was diluted, the wound would still be very painful. His condition doesn't look very good. Even if he had to pull himself together, Chiao Mian could tell that he was definitely uncomfortable. So after more than 10 minutes of playing, Chiao Mian proposed to end it. Tu Yuli didn't want her to leave just like that. Hearing her suggestion to end the scene, he panicked and said, "What's wrong? Did I not perform well just now? Do you think you don't feel like playing with me?" End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 888. Chapter 888. He feels that every minute and second is precious. No. Chiao Mian raised her head, looked at his slightly pale face, picked up the water glass on the bedside table, stood up and poured him a glass of water. She returned to the bedside holding the water glass and handed it to Tu Yuli's uninjured hand. "Senior Tu, do you want to take a rest? I think your mental state is not very good." The two of them were the only ones left in the ward. Bai Yusheng didn't stay long. He stayed in the ward for about 10 minutes and then left because of something. Mike stayed with me for almost an hour, and after answering a phone call, he had to leave temporarily. In the end, only Chiao Mian was left to accompany Tu Yuli in the ward. In normal times, if Tu Yuli had not been injured because of her, Chiao Mian would not have stayed so long. That is to say, I came to see him symbolically and then left. But this time Tu Yuli was injured because of her. He was in a hospital, and she had to stay and spend more time with him. Tu Yuli took a sip of water, lowered his eyes and was silent for a while, then shook his head gently. "I'm not tired, nor sleepy. If you feel tired, you can leave first, you don't have to stay here with me." He was actually tired and sleepy, and wanted to rest. But if he said he was tired and sleepy, Chiao Mian would leave immediately. It was not easy for him to have such an opportunity to be alone with her. Every minute and second feels precious to him. He wanted her to spend more time with him. He knew that she would stay here only because of her guilt towards him. Because he helped her block that blow and was injured. She felt sorry for him and owed him. She is making it up to him. If it weren't for this incident, her attitude towards him would have been as cold and distant as ever. How could he have been treated like this? Not only could he be alone with her for a long time, but she also began to smile towards him, and her attitude was completely different from before. Tu Yuli suddenly felt that his injury was worth it. This little injury can be exchanged for the current treatment, it's so worth it. "That's not what I meant," Chiao Mian said immediately. "Go to sleep when you are tired. I will stay here with you to finish the foredrip." Tu Yuli was stunned for a moment, raised his eyes to look at her, his eyes flickered slightly. "Aren't you going to leave?" Chiao Mian nodded. "Your four hasn't been finished yet. If I want to leave, I'll wait until Mike comes back. You don't need to accompany me if you have something to do. I can ask the nurse to come in." As soon as Tu Yuli finished speaking, he felt a little regretful. He was afraid that Chiao Mian would really leave. But the words had already been spoken, and he could not take them back. Fortunately, what he was worried about did not happen. Chiao Mian shook her head, picked an orange from the fruit basket on the bedside table, and slowly peeled it with a knife. "I told you, wait until you finish the four. Are you sure you really don't want to sleep?" Tu Yuli subconsciously raised his head and looked at the bag containing foredrips. When he saw that there was almost a whole bag of foredrips, the corners of his lips slightly raised. "Well, I'm not sleepy." He endured his tiredness and said, "If you are sleepy, you can take a nap. I'm here to accompany the patient. There are patients who are not sleeping, so I go to bed first." Chiao Mian curled her lips, cut the peeled orange into pieces, and then handed a piece to him. "Then what happens next? How do you spend your time? Do you watch movies? Let me choose one for you. Or do you like to do something else? What do you like to do when you are not working at home?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 889. Chapter 889. How about we add a game friend? Xiao Mian found it quite boring for the two of them to just sit there. She and Tu Yuli could not find any other topics to talk about except some work exchanges. Tu Yuli felt that even if he didn't have to do anything, as long as she was by his side, he would not be bored at all. Looking at her, his heart was filled with happiness. But he did not dare to say these words to her, and he could not say them to her. He could only bury his thoughts deep in his heart, and he had to hide them carefully for fear of being seen by her. Usually at home, when I'm at home, I just watch movies, play games, or go out for some exercise. Apart from that, there doesn't seem to be much else. Do you think my life is particularly monotonous and boring? You still like to play games? Xiao Mian finally heard someone who had the same hobbies as hers and couldn't help but ask, what games do you like to play? Some mobile games, just to pass the time, for example, King of Pesticides or something like that. Do you like to play King of Pesticide? I play this game too. What rank are you in? Tu Yuli thought again. Last season it seemed like the king had 58 stars, and this season I just became the king. I have been busy with work recently, so I haven't played much. You also play this game. Which zone are you in, and what rank are you in? Xiao Mian. Your king has 58 stars? Did you get it all by yourself? Didn't you find a power leveler? She really couldn't believe it. Tu Yuli, a top traffic person who is busy with work every day, doesn't care if he has time to play games, and he is actually rated 58 stars by the king? That couldn't have been put in by himself. This is unscientific. Power training. Tu Yuli frowned slightly, with a bit of confusion in his eyes. Why do you need to find a power training? If you hire a power training, wouldn't the fun of playing the game be lost? So, you typed it up yourself? Yes, what's wrong? By the way, your rank? Xiao Mian covered her face. Just put on the diamond. Diamond, pretty good. Xiao Mian, where can I go? You are a girl, but you are already very powerful if you put diamonds on your own. Is he serious? Miss Xiao, why don't we add a game friend? Until now, Tu Yuli didn't have Xiao Mian's contact information. After knowing that she was also playing games, he quietly proposed to add a game friend. When you add a game friend, you not only have a way to contact him, but you can also play games with Xiao Mian. In this case, we can play games together when we are free in the future. If you don't mind, I can also help you to improve your score. Xiao Mian felt a little moved after hearing this. With Tu Yuli, a powerful player with 58 stars in the king's ranking, to help her reach the points, there is no need for her to worry about not being able to reach the king's ranking. This is really too tempting for a newbie like her. But, thinking of something, she hesitated again. Well, I think it's better to forget it. I usually play games very rarely, and I have hardly played in the past few seasons. If you want to find teammates who can play black together, or you should find someone to play with regularly. It doesn't matter. In fact, I rarely play. In the future, if we have time to meet each other, we will play a few games. If we don't have time, forget it. Then, that's fine. Tu Yuli had talked to this extent, and Xiao Mian could no longer refuse, so she could only nod in agreement. End of this chapter. I secretly got married to a super boss. Author, Dance Lightly. Chapter 890. Chapter 890. Are you coming over tomorrow? She thinks it's okay to add a game friend. A busy person like Tu Yuli definitely doesn't have much time for fun. They shouldn't bump into each other during the time they play games. After adding game friends, the two chatted on the topic of games for almost an hour. As they chatted, Xiao Mian discovered that she had many interests and hobbies, which were similar to those of Tu Yuli. For example, the two of them are very homely in private. Like her, Tu Yuli actually hates going out to socialize. They all like small animals. When they were children, they all picked up stray cats and dogs and took them home to raise. And they also gave the stray dogs that they picked up the same name, called Bai. As we chatted, we had more and more common topics, and soon, 2 hours passed. When Tu Yuli's drip was almost finished, Mike came back. Miss Jiao, thank you for keeping watch over little Tutu for so long. Now I'm back too. If Miss Jiao has anything to do, please leave first. I'll take care of little Tutu. Mike opened the door and walked into the ward, hearing the sound coming from inside the room. As he laughed happily, he couldn't help but frown. He glanced at Tuyul with some worry. This little kid has grown up now, has a woman he likes, and wants to fall in love. He can understand all of these. Even, he felt that if Tuyuli liked this girl very much and insisted on being with her, he wanted to fall in love, so it would not be impossible to do so secretly. But this girl named Xiao has a boyfriend. And that man, at first glance, is not someone to be trifled with. This time Huang Yilin was so unlucky that someone exposed her. In all likelihood, it had something to do with that man. Even if they don't know who the man is, Huang Yilin may be easily outcast. This man is definitely not someone they can offend. If that person knew that the little brat was thinking about his woman, I'm afraid. Thinking of this, Mike's expression changed and he walked quickly towards the bedside, standing next to the bed and blocking the way between Tuyuli and Xiao Mian. When he looked down at Xiao Mian, there was an undisguised expulsion in his eyes. Miss Xiao, you have worked hard. Let's go back and rest. Mike, you. Behind him, Tuyuli frowned. Mike turned to look at him, curled his lips and said with a smile, little Tutu, Miss Xiao has been guarding you for several hours, and now it's time to eat. You won't let her continue hungry. Just keep it to you, not to mention that Miss Xiao has her own things to do, and we can't keep them busy, don't you think? Tuyuli pursed his lips and remained silent. Mike smiled again and said, you are willing to let such a little beauty starve, but I can't bear it. Come on, it's not enough for you to have me watching over you. I brought you your favorite 3 fresh wonton, do you want to try one? Tuyuli was silent for a few more seconds before he raised his head and looked at Xiao Mian. Miss Xiao, you can go eat. Mike will be here to guard you. You don't need to come here again today. You can go back and have a good rest. Oh well. Xiao Mian looked at the time and saw that it was indeed getting late, so she stood up and said, then I'll leave first. Senior 2, take good care of yourself. I'll come over to see you tomorrow. Tuyuli's eyes that had just darkened immediately brightened up again. There was surprise in his eyes. Miss Xiao, are you coming over tomorrow? Xiao Mian nodded, of course I will come. Senior 2, you are injured because of me. You are still in the hospital. How can I not come to see you? However, if you don't want to be disturbed by too many people, I can also. End of this chapter.